that work?
Sitting smiles 30 seconds.
Yeah. You can't tell who.
You're,
I'm not gonna. Yeah, because I wasn't thinking.
so you have a motion. Technically, they're correct.
Okay.
Welcome, everybody. I can call this meeting to order at 5:31. I got the whole board together in a room that's very nice, very exciting. First thing is the Director of Administration report.
So, tonight, we're going to have a presentation from Melissa Pohl at McFarland, Director of Teaching and Learning, Melissa, and Director of Student Services, Lauren. For items A and B are kind of compressed together. So I will turn it over to them right away.
Fantastic. Well, good evening. It's great to see everyone in person. I don't remember the last time that we were not over Zoom altogether. So in front of you is a packet of information that Melissa and I are going to walk you through. It's the one that has this as a cover. So it has a few updates since when you received it on Friday, which is why you have that printed copy. So if you can turn to the second page, you'll see that tonight you will be presented with updated information regarding the current public health data from Dane County, as well as additional information on school reopening, including updated step criteria and no earlier than dates. This will be an action item at the end of the meeting. We will also be talking you through programming updates that will impact early childhood through second grade, as well as VIP services at all grade levels. Lastly, we're going to review public health guidance regarding athletics. There will be time throughout the presentation for you to ask questions. So if you can turn to page 4, Melissa will provide you with a public health data update.
Thank you, Lauren. You'll see on this slide and on several of the slides after that we are comparing the information from August 3rd to today. The reason for that is August 3rd was really the last time we spoke to the board in depth with information about metrics for opening or moving through the steps that we have in place. And so we wanted to highlight in this Dane County data page the differences in the situation in the county from August 3rd to today. Now I say today, but you'll notice on the slide that it is labeled October 16th. Currently the Dane County data dashboard is down for computer maintenance, and so Friday is the last date that we have the publicly available data available. As you can see from the charts on the left-hand side, the number of confirmed cases has increased from a little over 4,000 cases at the beginning of August to over 12,000 cases on Friday. The number of total tests has increased about 4 times, from about 176,000 to 432,000. There's also been an increase in the number of cases ever hospitalized from 284 to 449. And unfortunately, the number of deaths has increased by 9 in that 2-month period of time to a total of 46 deaths from COVID-19 in the county. The graph on the right-hand side is one that you're familiar with from other board meetings, where you'll see that there is the number of cases each day and then a 7-day average trend line throughout. You'll notice in red we've marked where August 3rd falls on that graph, and at that point we were pretty flat in terms of the 7-day average with about 50 cases per day. Since then, there has been a large increase in cases when students came back to UW-Madison. Then things started to decline a bit in the county, but currently we are experiencing an increase in the number of daily cases in Dane County. Now I did mention UW. If you turn to page 5, you'll see a graphic that comes from the Dane County Public Health Snapshot from October 15th, which shows that currently the cases from the UW have really leveled off. The average number of cases per day that are associated with the UW is about 20 cases per day, and the current increase in cases in the county is currently being driven by non-UW cases.
Wow, that's crazy.
I'm sure that you have been getting numerous emails from people who are either wondering why we have early childhood through second grade in person and likewise why we have grades 3 through 12 in virtual instruction. And so the goal of this presentation is to clarify our decision-making criteria, and as Lauren mentioned, at the end you'll have an opportunity to vote on those criteria. If you turn to page 6, since we are also getting similar questions as well, it was actually Aaron Tarnitzer who had the idea of making a chart that shows what's going on with the other schools in the county. So on this graphic, or this table, it shows which schools are currently operating with virtual instruction, and those are colored red, which are hybrid instruction, which is yellow, and which schools currently have students for full in-person instruction. The only school in the county that has full in-person instruction for any grade levels is Cambridge, which is split between Dane and Jefferson counties. On the handout you have, there is a typo there. It isn't Jefferson, it's fixed online.
Right in the middle of town.
Yep. And they are currently, they have in-person instruction. I saw in the news this evening that their elementary school is going to go back to virtual for a little bit for the next 2 weeks. But for early childhood through 2nd grade, there is a mix in the county. Some schools have virtual instruction, some schools have hybrid instruction like McFarland does. At 3rd through 5th grade, with that exception of Cambridge, Wanakee will be beginning 3rd and 4th graders with hybrid instruction beginning next week on the 26th. But all of the other schools in the county have virtual instruction for grades 3 through 12, which matches what we're doing in McFarland. Before I keep going and talk about the specifics of the steps and the criteria we're using in McFarland, are there any questions about the public Dane County data?
Has there been any movement on the latest, what is the latest lawsuit that they're suing over the mask mandate? I think, is there anything come of that? Is that? I struggle with the Dane County health stuff, and then, you go the next morning and read about 3 different lawsuits that are ongoing that would directly impact these things, and I'm just wondering if anybody has any. Thank you.
There was a lawsuit up in Sawyer County, and the judge there did not rule in favor of the legislators that had brought the suit, saying that he was not going to do what they refused to do legislatively. So the mask mandate is still in place, but it's my understanding that that will be appealed.
That will be.
Appealed.
Yeah.
And can you remind us of the ruling today about the amount of people who are able to be in place? Because if I remember correctly, I believe the Tavern League brought a suit. Are you aware of this?
Yeah.
I did not see that.
The injunction that was put in place was overturned by a judge today.
So it's still kept at a small number, correct?
So I think the question goes back to a little bit, I think the board, since we've begun this, we have been following public health matters in Dane County, and we haven't been focusing as much on the ongoing changes with the injunctions, which didn't seem to necessarily only be impacting us necessarily, but we're out there. I would suspect that we're still on that page now, that we're still following public health matters in Dane County. Okay.
Well, let's take a look at the next page with our steps for reopening. Much of the information that I will go over with you that are on the next several pages of the packet is not new information. It's just recentering and reminding you and the community of where we're at as far as our steps and our process for moving between steps. On page 8, it's a reminder that we do have a 5-step process for reopening schools that began in August with staff only. Then, right at the beginning of school, we moved to full virtual instruction, step 2 for students, which was provided by McFarland educators. Most of our students in grades 3 through 12 remain at step 2 at this point. Step 3 is a hybrid system, which has 50% of the learning happening in person and 50% happening virtually. After that would be Step 4, when we would have all of our students here all day, but they would remain in cohorts that don't mix with each other. And Step 5 would be traditional in-person attendance, where students attend all day, but cohorts are no longer required. As I highlighted, we will move different buildings through the steps at different times based on our public health recommendations. And also our 4K students might be at a different step from the rest of K-12 due to them being ruled by child care regulations and not the school setting regulations. If you look at page 9, again, our criteria for moving between those steps are determined by internal indicators, like having health and safety protocols in place, appropriate staff training, student and staff health, and consultation with our district medical advisor. Along with that, we also use the recommendations from public health, their orders and guidance, and any additional metrics that are developed by public health or the Department of Health Services. Keeping going to page 10 in your packet, all of the slides in this next section will show what the situation was on August 3rd and then what we have as a current situation here on October 19th. So at August 3rd, that was before Dane County had issued the reopening metrics and at that time the orders that we were required to follow as a school. On August 3rd, we had developed our own plan for reopening that followed the forward Dane metrics and had various portions of that data being at yellow to move from step 2 to step 3. Currently, on October 19th, our criteria for moving from step 2 to step 3 is based on Public Health Madison Dane County recommendations for grade levels. Those recommendations are based on a certain number of cases with a 14-day average for each grade level, but they also consider things such as the forward Dane metrics, the data trajectory, current best practice, federal and state guidance, and other unforeseen influencing factors. Now, while I showed you on that slide at the beginning, our current 14-day average of cases is above 54. Currently, public health is recommending that it's okay for in-person instruction in grades K through 2, which is why we are having those grades operate at step 3 for our hybrid instruction at this time. Currently, public health's recommendation for grades 3 through 12 remains at virtual instruction, which is why grades 3 through 12 are currently operating at step 2, virtual instruction at this time. Continuing on the next page, kind of looking forward, when we were at August 3rd, again, we had developed our own internal guidelines for moving from step 3 to step 4 that related to those forward Dane metrics. Now, August 19th, our criteria that we're proposing for moving from step 3 to step 4 is for public health to remove the requirement of 6-foot social distancing for students at school. Currently, our grades, early childhood through 2 students would not have enough physical space to fit the entire class in the classroom and maintain that 6-foot social distancing. So that's why we have our hybrid models where we're only having half of the students in person at one time. If public health were to remove that requirement, we could move from step 3 to step 4 and have all of our students at school all day. Before I keep going, are there any questions about those criteria and clarifications that we have for moving from step 2 to 3 to 4?
Has there been any indication at all that they're maybe taking a serious look at reducing the distance from 6 feet to something less or to remove it at all?
No.
Yeah. That's what I figured. Okay.
How is this, go ahead.
I had a quick question. Melissa, will you remind me, was it in the past sustained for 2 weeks? Did that change? Or has it always been 4 weeks?
It's always been 4 weeks.
Thank you.
Yes.
How is the staff with this? How do they feel? Are they looking forward to the progression, or are they have concerns, or where's the staff?
Arlen, I think what I hear the most from staff is the concern around the number of increase of cases we're seeing in Dane County and the Supreme Court injunction, and what does that mean, and kind of this uncertainty about when will 3-5 go to in-person, when will we not, what should we as a district be doing because of that injunction? So I feel like it's more so the uncertainty out there, which is why we wanted to really clarify and bring to your attention kind of what we are thinking about that movement to provide some ease of mind. And you'll hear later these no earlier buy event dates. So I think all of that will help ease some of that anxiety.
That's what I was understanding. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
The 6 foot is for all grades, it's not just for young kids.
Yes. So much of that information, again, was a review of information that's been discussed at the board previously, both between August 3rd and today. What will be new this evening is some criteria for moving backwards through the steps, which begin on page 12 at the packet. Before I begin going through these, I want to make it clear that the metrics that I'm about to discuss, we have not met them at any time since beginning step 3 at K2. So even though these are new things that we're discussing with you this evening, it's not because we have met these or if we have ever met them in the amount of time that we've been open for in-person instruction at grades EC through 2. So moving backwards, we just talked about moving forward from step 3 to step 4. We would need public health to remove that 6 foot distancing. So moving backwards, if they ever removed it and then put it back on again, then we'd move backwards from step 4 to step 3, and we'd say, okay, now we can only have that hybrid model with 50% attendance. The part that has a little bit more nuance to it is moving backwards from step 3 to step 2. What we're recommending you approve tonight is that we would move backwards from step 3 to step 2 if 3 or more people, which would be students or staff, at a single grade level test positive for COVID-19 within 5 days of each other, then that particular grade would move backwards to virtual instruction step 2 for a minimum of 14 days, beginning as soon as we're notified of the second case. If any additional cases emerge while we're in virtual instruction, perhaps we would extend those 14 days further.
So if it's 3 or more people, but you're just in a 5-day period, but as soon as you're notified of the second person, so isn't that really 2 people?
It should be the third. That was we've kind of updated this, and that is a mistake. So as soon as we're notified of the third person.
And that would be like the very next day, or would you
Yes.
take kids out of class that day? I mean, like if you had a morning, would you not do the afternoon, or?
We would, when we would make a move like this, we would both text the families so they get the information right away and send an email. There has been a situation where between the AM and PM sessions, we notified and said, don't come in for the afternoon session for a particular class.
Did that work pretty well for notification?
Public health's guidance to us has been that if the class is already at school and we have more than an hour left, we should contact families to pick them up. If it's less than an hour, we should just keep them and figure out a way to transition them separately to leave the building so we're not exposing other kids. That has been the guidance that we have
Do
received.
you have like a protocol in case like you can't reach a parent or a pickup person, like for that student, do they remain at school then for the rest of the time, or what if they show up, or what if they show up and didn't get the message that their particular
Yes,
session?
then we have at every building an isolation room in case a child is sick, in case there is a chance that a parent sends it to school for whatever reason, and then call and say, oh, they've actually tested positive. We do have isolation rooms to keep
Do you
students.
think the communication to parents via text is working so that you can basically change on an hour's notice?
Yes.
Basically.
And a good example would be last night, we were notified of a case at one of our local daycares at 9 o'clock at night, and we were able to text and email our CEPS families and say, if your child attended here, please don't come to school, and we did not have any students attend AM classes. So about 12 hours later, they were following, they got the message, and then did not send their kids to school.
I ask about, within one grade level, how is it, are you able to cohort them? Are they not interacting at all, like on the playground or anything?
At each of our schools, our elementary, actually all the way through 8th grade, our schools are set up where kindergarten students are in one wing, 1st grade students are in a different, and 2nd grade. And so those students aren't using the same restrooms, they're not walking in the same hallways or using the same entrance and exits for the large part. And so that's why we separated it by grade. At recess currently at K2, the students, even though it's only 2nd grade students, for example, who are out at recess at the same time, but those students are playing in different sections based on their teacher. So one 2nd grade class isn't even playing at recess in the same physical area as another 2nd grade class. Let alone mixing with 1st or kindergarten students.
Do you have a plan for snow?
It's not going to snow, largely, that's
Okay.
the main plan.
I just see all these kids in their clothes.
It'll be a lot like a regular winter. I mean, we have kids who have to bundle all up to get outside. You know, we will want them outside as long as the weather permits. And then they will come back in just like they do in a normal year with all of their wet things and take them off and go learn again. So that was the criteria moving backwards for a single grade with 3 or more cases. If we are in a situation where we have 5 or more people, again, students or staff, within a school who test positive within 5 days of each other, we would have the entire school move to virtual instruction for a 14-day period while we reevaluate and see what's going on at that point. There is a typo there where, again, it says when we're notified of the 4th case, it should be the 5th case. When we're notified of that 5th case, we would transition the school from step 3 back to virtual instruction for 14 days. Now also, and we've done this at various times throughout this year already, there may be times when a single classroom makes that transition for a period of time from step 3 to step 2 as well. But these would be our criteria for moving an entire grade level or an entire school from one step back to step 2. Any other clarifying questions about those new criteria that we're asking you to approve later this evening?
I don't think so.
And I should have mentioned, we were in coordination with our medical professionals in developing these criteria and these numbers, and they are based a bit on the Department of Health Services outbreak criteria. Their criteria would be 2 or more cases within a 28-day period, but those 2 cases would have to be close contacts or in the same classroom as each other. To be 2 within
28-day period?
but that are in close contact with each other.
Yeah.
So we aren't considering in our 3 cases, you know, that they all 3 have to be from one classroom. We're saying anywhere in that grade level, 3 cases. If there were to be a situation where we had what the Department of Health Services would consider an outbreak, they might close us down before we reach these criteria, and we would follow that recommendation at that time.
Yeah, I think we're gonna be the easiest ones to sell. I expect a bit of a spike probably, and once the general populace sees that no sooner than January 26th date, I have a feeling there's gonna be some freakouts going on. Expect it, understand it, but I think it probably has. And this may be the wrong time, so just tell me if it is, but are we looking currently at any sort of ability to start planning co-curricular activities without necessarily having the kids in school in person?
So, Craig, with regards to the co-curriculars, probably a little bit more related to the athletic and the co-curriculars that you're speaking to. Next Monday at the 6 p.m. board meeting, there is some public input coming from some parents.
Yeah.
And then November 2nd, which is 2 weeks from tonight, will be a board meeting in which the high school administration will be giving a presentation based off of their meetings with RBC, Rock Valley Conference, Badger Conference. And we saw today the Big Eight came out with their direction to what they're heading. So
I think
we would shift that so that the high school administration can present that piece.
That'll check the boxes. Thank you. Thank you.
And as Lauren mentioned earlier about just the uncertainty or not knowing what the criteria are, on the pink sheet that you have, there are some typos in it that I need to fix now. But that sheet, once I fix the typos, has a one-page document that lists what our steps are and what the criteria for moving forward and backwards between those steps are. That will be posted on our website in the coronavirus section so that community members have access to clear information about what the criteria we're using for decision making are.
Perfect. This is perfect.
Is there some, for whatever reason, it doesn't always seem that posting it on the website gets it where it needs to go? Is this going out to parents as well?
Yes, the yellow page that you have is a lengthy email that has details about all of this information. And again, it's also pending your approval in the vote later this evening. But this email outlines all of the things that we're discussing in this presentation tonight. And that'll be sent out tomorrow to all district families.
Okay. What would you suggest, Tom, as a?
Oh, no, that's fine.
Well, no, I'm saying, you know, the more options we can give.
No,
To assure that they get the information.
Sometimes it's just getting them an email to remind them to look at the website.
Okay.
Because for whatever reason, I think a lot of people rely on text and email maybe, and Facebook. So the website, the district's website sometimes is the last thought.
Too many of them rely on social.
Well, they just rely on their friends and neighbors of the parents to
Right.
say, hey, where is this? What, you know, and that, I get that, but so long as we're not just putting it out there and then hoping people find it.
Right.
The email is great. Yes, correct.
The other piece, you know, if I were, I am, a busy working mother who has children in the district, you know, there's a lot of information available. One thing that we've tried to put together is on that coronavirus update page, there is an information update that is new in the last 2 weeks, and there's a link to it on that page, and it's kind of the blue newsletter is how I think of it because it has all of these blue boxes on it. But that update is a nice summary of just really some highlights of information. And so if you're overwhelmed with looking at reading all of the emails and reading the FAQ every single day, that is a really good source of information that summarizes a lot of the pieces. And we update that every Friday with information.
So you had mentioned that there was a case in a daycare, is that right? Yesterday? So, but the kids couldn't come here then? Were parents aware of that? That to me is, what is the policy on that?
So with daycare, it's a little bit different because the daycares have to notify the parents, right? Those are the people they serve. And so we were then notified that there was a positive case and that they were closing the daycare for a bit of time until they got recommendations from public health. So we were able then to look and say, okay, well, pending those recommendations from public health, we're asking you to keep your child home out of the abundance of caution, just because we didn't have all the information yet at 9 o'clock last night. So then we just asked them to not come today, pending that information, which then we did receive.
Oh, and then can they come back?
No, public health has actually stated that the students have all been exposed, and so then they will be out serving their quarantine period.
Because I can see how that kind of policy can affect us, because those parents look at us going, where's the policy in that? You know what I mean? I was just, that's all me to me. Is there any way we can address that?
Well, we are working with our daycare providers to just let them know what schools need to know if when they're sending kids, and if there is a positive case, what we need to know so that we can coordinate our efforts. So we are working the best we can to kind of partner with our
Yeah,
daycares.
right, and that's the best. And what what I was suggesting was that the school's decision will be in question, but what I'm hearing you say is it's a really public health department decision. So I think just knowing that that's what's in play here and not necessarily the district making that choice, I think will be good. I think I'm kind of echoing what Tom is saying, maybe reading between the lines too, and just making sure that the communication is out there. And I'm not talking to you, Lauren, at all. I'm talking generally.
And I think it's important for our families also to know, obviously this is a learning experience for us. And every positive case or potential exposure has been a little bit different. So we brainstorm around, what can this look like? And really what we have done is we have always erred on the side of caution until we have that more information, just because it feels so much safer. And so we want to ensure that the staff are safe and our students are safe, and so we are going to err on the side of caution when we don't have all the information.
And those students and any other students who are in a quarantine period because of an exposure at a daycare or at the community or through their parents, we do provide virtual instruction to those students during the quarantine. So for early childhood through second grade students who their classmates are in person, while they are at home in a quarantine period, we do have teachers set up to Zoom with them to provide instruction during the day for the period while they're being quarantined.
So since there were a number of kids who were exposed, I'm guessing, it almost turned into a little cohort, but it's a different teacher than they've had in the past.
CEPS has actually identified a kindergarten virtual teacher, a first grade virtual teacher, and a second grade virtual teacher. So they will, if it could happen, I guess, if a kindergartner had to quarantine twice, they'd have the same virtual teacher, just not the same in-person teacher.
Did we, contact tracing, figure out if our earlier couple of cases were contacted through school, or was it outside the school? Did we find that out there was one student, one teacher, I think, early on, over at Conrad?
I don't believe any of our positive cases have occurred from contact from someone at school.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Because I know we had one high school teacher, and then Conrad, elementary teacher,
So, I think what we want to do is make sure we kind of stay away from identifying too far down.
Oh, yeah.
Because we have done exactly what we're supposed to do through public health, mass Dane County with the announcements. We're supposed to make the generalization, protect the individuals.
That's that FERPA?
HIPAA.
Well, but HIPAA I read somewhere that doesn't apply. There's something called FERPA.
It's both. Both of them overlap within the school building.
Okay.
And that would be another piece, on our coronavirus updates page, we have the dashboard that includes the number of positive cases for students and for staff, but we don't report any numbers for a particular school if it's fewer than 5, so that we can maintain those HIPAA and FERPA privacy guidelines.
Thank you.
So the metrics, again, they'll be updated on the website and an email will be sent out. Another piece of the email that will be sent out tomorrow is something that Craig alluded to, which is on page 13 in your packet. No earlier than dates for transition to hybrid learning. Back at the board meeting on August 17th, we set some no earlier dates for transition for the various grade levels. What we are recommending that you approve this evening is that early childhood through second grade continues in step 3 until we meet criteria for a transition forward or backward through our steps. But grades 3 through 12 will not begin step 3 any earlier than Monday, January 26th. Now, we are certainly eager to get our students back for in-person instruction as soon as is safely possible, but what we want to avoid is any unnecessary transitions back and forth from virtual to in-person to virtual to in-person, because those transitions are very disruptive to the learning and to the planning and preparation for teachers. And then again, like I said, the learning for students, that transition is very disruptive. And what we know in following the data over time in Dane County, when we have holidays like Memorial Day, 4th of July, or Labor Day, following those holidays, there has been an increase in the number of cases in the county. And so we do not want to transition to in-person hybrid learning for students in grades 3 through 12 at this point, with the number of holidays that are coming up between now and that January 26th date. That way we again avoid unnecessary transitions.
Is the 26th the start of third quarter then?
It is.
Is that why
Yep.
that date is that date?
Yes. Now that date is,
From a county perspective as well, many of the school districts, as you probably noticed, many of them are transitioning to no earlier than days as well, even ahead of us. Not that we're trying to copy them, but we do know that much of the county is kind of in the same boat, other than us operating more in-person hybrid with K2, other than many of our other ones. So this probably is not going to be shocking to our community. I think it was yesterday that Madison Metropolitan, or on Friday, they had made it known that they are going out to second semester before they start as well.
That's 3 through 12?
They actually virtual for every child. It's a little bit different of a monster. Lots of 28,000 students versus 2,600.
Has anyone from here been in contact with the Edgewood folks? You know,
We have not, from a particular standpoint of public versus a private education, and we stayed talking with public and county
yeah.
schools.
I was just curious as to how they, because they've been full in person the whole time, right? Or did they switch to all virtual?
It's my understanding not every level is involved, but I don't have which levels.
I was just wondering, anecdotally, how it was going.
If it's important for us to add them to our grade in the future, we can add that.
Yeah. I understood through Andrew that their president did not participate in the weekly superintendent's meetings.
Oh, he wasn't, huh?
No. Which is unfortunate, because that could be good information. If they care to show it.
before we leave that slide, page 13, those no earlier dates are not guaranteed that a transition would happen on that date. So the same in August, we had said 3 through 8 wouldn't transition any earlier than September 24th. Well, we did not transition on September 24th, and we may or may not make the transition when we get to January 26th.
Just no earlier than that.
Right.
So I'm sure we'll get some feedback from parents and others. So helping, yes, to find reasons for that date. Because I understand the holidays. I understand that wanting to switch on a quarter or a semester. But what are the other cases for wanting to push it out so far? Are those the primary factors, or are there other factors as well? And is there anything in between where 3 through 5 might do some hybrid, or high school might do, I'm just wondering if there's something in between, all or nothing.
I think you hit on the main reasons with the holidays, not wanting to transition here and back, step 2, step 3, step 2 again as much as possible. I think just knowing that date in the future, our teachers are working very hard at grades 3 through 12 at providing that virtual instruction. And if they're also knowing that at any point with 2 weeks notice, they might need to make that transition to step 3, that's another piece that's on their plate to be prepared for, as well as families to be prepared for what their situation might look like with that transition at 2 weeks notice. So we're hoping to just say, we are not gonna make that transition until this date to settle that. But also, if you remember what those criteria were for moving grades 3 through 5 to a hybrid situation, the 14-day average of cases would need to be 39 or fewer, sustained for 4 weeks. I think there's also the likelihood of us reaching that metric that's set out by public health is very unlikely between now and closer to January 26th anyway.
So the January 26th number is optimistically realistic. It's like, we see the trends not going the right way, but we hope it will. And if we were to set something sooner, it's likely that the public health numbers wouldn't let us. And it also would be a more difficult transition for parents, students, teachers, and so forth. So,
Well,
like I said, I think we will get a lot of questions on it, and to have it well reasoned like this is very important for people to know.
So we kind of also mapped it, just on a piece of paper to look at, if we were to maintain that for a couple weeks and get underneath and then go those 4 weeks. In a sense, we're almost 6 weeks out. Plus, we've also said we need to notify parents, so they have a 2-week transition period of time. Now we're at 8 weeks, that brings us just before Christmas break. We're gone for 2 weeks for Christmas break, which that's what the calendar schedule is now. If things are going really well before Christmas and those 2 weeks are wonderful, and things stay really wonderful for 14, 21 days thereafter, then you are correct. When you look at those 2 snapshots of time, realistically, second semester is a transition that hopefully the public health, Madison Dane County data in our county works out being that way.
It's very helpful. I mean, as much as I think people want to be maybe overly optimistic, even a reasonably optimistic outcome with all the notice provisions and all the holidays coming up and all the public health data that we have to meet still gets us to January 26th, which then appears to be a fairly aggressive, doesn't seem like it now, but a fairly aggressive date.
And it really is, when you put everything together.
Right.
I have a question for everybody here, kind of. And that is, if any of you are responding to the community/parent kind of emails that we're getting, I'm wondering in what manner are you or are you not responding? I've been just thanking people for the input and really not saying anything else in terms of actually responding to their questions and concerns in the body of the email. And is that how everybody kind of feels like we should be doing it? I don't feel comfortable responding in any sort of detail to any parental or community emails. I like to tell, make sure that they know we got it and we appreciate it, but we should probably have a single source of responding to these kinds of things. And is that Andrew? Is that going to be, not Andrew now, but is it going to be Andrew or you, Jeff? Is it going to be principals?
I think that, well, in the past, I've been doing exactly the same thing, is I kind of stop and I
Yep.
read everybody's
Yep.
and say that I thank you and I read them. I kind of lost my train of thought.
Well, some kind of express in their emails that they're not getting responded to either quickly enough or at all. And I just don't feel like that's something we as individual board members probably ought to be doing. I mean, responding individually to these emails that we get, rather we should have a common stance.
I've been responding. My problem is that just the time. But I make it clear that I'm not talking on behalf of the board. And I try to answer some of their concerns with information that we've received as board members. And I can express my personal opinion,
Right.
but that's reflected in my votes as well, or in the discussion at the meetings. And so, I don't have any problem responding with more substance, but to me, the key is that everybody knows we get them, we read them, we understand them.
Right.
It informs our decisions.
Yep.
And to the extent that, we can provide additional information, that we can point to either on the website or through some board, minutes or board, information that is public, or refer them to, the particular, subject matter expert within the district. That's kind of what I've been trying to do. Yeah, again, it's hard, but
It is, I mean.
I literally get hundreds of emails a day, not from them, but for work and everything else, and so sometimes it's just hard to respond.
I think that we as individual board members have been doing the right thing, and I think that people from the district have been doing the right thing, because anytime like Jeff or Lauren or somebody responds to a parent, they've always CC'd us, so we know what they've said. And I think they're the ones who should be speaking on behalf of the district.
Craig, I think when you were not on the board for the short time, we had this discussion.
Okay, no, that's fine. I was just wondering if anybody else had any other tacks that they take to try to suit these stuff or something.
No, I think just speaking on behalf of ourselves and saying that we've read them and then referring to the right district person to respond to the content seems to be working really well and probably will continue in the future, right?
I think so, and I think those frequently asked questions I think they take in a lot of the stuff that these people are looking for, and I'm just not so sure that they maybe look at those things as
Yeah,
closely as
I
they
sent
should.
the PowerPoint or the link for the website to just say, this is decided on October 3rd, and here's the website, and I feel safe sharing public information like that.
Well, and I think what we might do is take that grid area, send you the link, so you have that link readily available to sometimes send to people right off the bat.
That would be nice.
That would just be that dashboard piece, that might be a tool, and certainly we can talk about other communication process and procedure too, as we go through the evening.
Yeah, and to be clear, I think community members, parents are entitled to know what each board member thinks. The risk, of course, is that they confuse what you're saying as being a board, a full board
Right.
proclamation, or you give them poor information or whatever. But I mean, to be clear, I think I want kids in school. I want kids in school safely. I want teachers to be safe. I want staff to be safe. And I also recognize that there are a myriad of other issues. So sometimes a single issue email, if you're just addressing that one email issue without addressing sort of the complexity of the information that we're trying to act on, may not be good. And so sometimes it's hard to, it would be almost impossible to write a full email explanation about things that we talk about at the board, the information that the school has, the information that we try to synthesize. And so I understand parents, community members might be frustrated. Kids are probably very frustrated. But we're really struggling with a lot of different pieces of information, trying to put them in and relying heavily on experts who are taking that to go, you know, make it an action, put it into action. And, you know, that's about as best I could respond to anyone when they write to me. It's like, you know, I understand your concern, I list your information, I make sure that we're taking that information into account when we as a board or the district, and I'm satisfied that the district is taking a lot, probably all the feedback into account. It's just not it's not just one single thing, and it's very, very hard to respond.
This is new to everybody.
It's getting old for being something.
Sure seen that. Okay.
Melissa, did you have more on page 13?
No, I think I'm ready for page 14, which is a good transition for upcoming holidays. So we are going to have a programming change that will impact students in grades early childhood through second, as well as students who are receiving virtual in-person or VIP services. For the 2-week period of November 23rd through December 4th, we will move those grades and VIP services to be virtual, back to step 2. The reason for that is, again, around the time of holidays, we've seen a spike in cases in the county, and we want to be proactive coming into the Thanksgiving holiday. If we were to have a person at school test positive on Friday, November 20th, that would give us time for Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday, November 23rd, 24th, and 25th, to notify close contacts of that positive case so that those individuals could perhaps get tested themselves or work to modify their personal Thanksgiving plans for gatherings with their family. Then following the Thanksgiving holiday, it would also give us a chance to monitor the data for our school and local community before bringing students back for in-person instruction at school. We will notify families of that change. That's part of the letter or the email that will go out tomorrow that you have a copy of in yellow. And we'll send other more targeted communications about that change for our families in grades EC through 2 so that they're aware of the change and can make plans ahead of November 23rd. Any questions about that programming change? And that is not something we're asking for a vote on tonight. That's a programming change for those grades.
I think that makes perfect sense. I think that's kind of covering all your bases, and if we have an issue right before the holiday, you can let people know. I think it's great. It's good sound thinking, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, with that, I will turn it over to Lauren for page 15.
So, thank you, Melissa. So as Jeff alluded to earlier, there are 2 important dates for you to be aware of. October 26th, there are going to be public comments regarding athletics and high school athletics. And then on November 2nd, you will have a presentation from the high school administration regarding high school winter sports for your consideration. So if you will turn to the final page in the packet regarding athletics, we wanted to highlight what public health is currently requiring. So public health categorizes sports into low, medium, and high risk categories. You can see on the right side of the page how they are defining those categories. You'll notice that they are categorized by how easily the individuals can be spaced apart and the need for shared equipment. On the left side of the page, you will see requirements from public health for districts in Dane County. And there are 2 important requirements. One is physical distancing, so that 6-foot distancing must be maintained at all times. And the other is that games and competitions are allowed for low-risk sports, given that they're still following those distancing requirements. So an important note is that while public health cannot enforce what happens outside of Dane County, they are not recommending that residents from Dane County leave the county to play sports that aren't allowed in Dane County, as these are high-risk activities and could increase disease transmission within our county.
Which is going on consistently. Yes. I've gone to Fort Atkinson 2 weekends in a row to watch Nora's soccer team play Northern Park. So the teams are getting together, but they're leaving Dane County to compete.
So hence the special consideration of having our parents coming forward with comments that they would like to provide for our next regular scheduled meeting, which is October 26th, prior to our annual meeting. And then the high school administration athletic director would like to be able to make a presentation with the board. They didn't feel like it's necessary to be already having that conversation right now because conferences are still having discussions about what they want to do. The Badger Conference has delayed some of their decision making. The Rock Valley hasn't made a decision. The principals and the ADs have made some recommendations. The superintendents and boards have not taken action for the Rock Valley. The Big Eight just recently today came out with what their plan was. So most of those sports, even the low risk ones, are not scheduled to be starting until the middle of November, end of November. So I think it's safe for your high school administration to learn more about what's going on with the different conferences that we participate in, see what public health is, how they're reacting, and then come to you with more conversation on November 2nd. Would that be appropriate?
Oh, for sure. I think it's got to be made clear somehow to the folks that come in on the 26th and want to do their public comment, that this isn't a discussion. You know, we're there to listen to their comments, and really there's no back and forth.
That message has actually already been communicated.
Okay.
High school administration met with that group, talked about it, and they understand that they're there to present. From what I know about that group and what they want to talk about is they really just want to share the importance, similar to education, the importance of trying to get us kids back more active, doing things. So I think they're a very conscious group about being mindful of providing information. And just looking for administration and the board to ultimately make a decision for the school district. Yes?
So that's what I kind of was struggling with when I got the email was, are we even able to make a decision without knowing what these different conferences are doing now?
Well, hence the reason why we're seeing what the conferences are voting on.
Right.
Or at least presenting, and like the Rock Valley hasn't finalized between so it usually goes AD and the principal, and then they make a recommendation to the district administrators group. The district administrators group for the Rock Valley has not yet met, has not even scheduled a meeting. They were starting to look at trying to schedule something in the next 14 days. So again, the good news is you have a couple board meetings before any potential conference activity might be starting, whether we're in it or not.
So basically, we don't even have all the information we need yet to be able to respond as a board, right?
Correct.
That's what I thought. I mean, I'm really happy that we're here, but I also would like, we're not, we haven't been asked to make those types of decisions yet. Correct.
So the goal of the board and the district has been to try to get some hybrid going, which under public health Madison-Dade County we are allowed to with EC2. We've been able to do some VIP. Today there was the high school had some VIP with their several tech ed classes. So they were very happy to be moving forward with that.
That started today.
That started today. Very successful. Steve was sharing just earlier how excited parents were and how excited high school kids were. So, but with every time you bring someone new in and you administer around it, we have to be mindful of the plans that go in. And considerable amounts of planning went in just for even opening shop classes. In reality, they have garage doors that open up for them to transition in and out of. So it took a while, but I didn't want to take this off course here So yes, October 26th, November 2nd. More information coming for co-curricular sports.
That's positive.
Yep.
And I think that's all folks are looking for is just some sort of movement forward, whether it's exactly what they want or not. They just want options, I guess, and at least a discussion.
Yep. Looking forward to it.
Those folks have actually been very civil and very accommodating at this point, the ones that are kind of spearheading the program.
So that is really the ending of our presentation, and we really, Melissa and I were both talking, it is so great to have such support from the board, so we wanted to thank you for that. And then, if there are any other questions, feel free to let us know, or as things come up, feel free to reach out, and we're happy to provide any kind of clarification.
And on your desk, I did put, so you have Melissa and Mark's phone numbers and their titles, because even I sometimes screw up their titles.
We'll put you on speed dial.
There you go.
I want to thank you guys and everybody else. I kind of think of it as a duck. You guys are just so smooth. And underneath, I'm sure everything's going crazy, trying to keep up with everything. So, appreciate it. And I think when parents, community members think about it, they appreciate it too. Sometimes we get caught up in our little issue or our little day and we don't recognize that there's a lot of paddling going on underneath. So thank you all.
I would certainly echo that, and in all honesty, my concern is for like you people that you're not gonna kill yourself over this thing. I can't even imagine, to tell you the truth, the pressure you probably feel to, I don't even know how to describe it, but I worry about your well-being, Andrew's well-being, all you people that are working so hard and so diligently. So just, I would implore that you take care of yourself. Try to get sleep, try to eat right, just those kind of basic things. And you've got families to take care of yourself. That's the most important thing, but I can't tell you how much I appreciate all you're doing. Sure.
I think we all appreciate you very much.
That's a good summary.
Yes. Thank you.
Keeping it short.
Item C?
Yep.
Item C, 2021 budget update. Just a reminder, next week is the annual meeting that will occur at 7 p.m. That will be located in the Wabisa Gymnasium, half of it. The other half's filled with furniture. So it will be, that does allow for in-person for residents because during the annual meeting, just a reminder, you'll vote in as a board of parliamentarian, and then they'll shift into those that are in attendance are acting as a resident, not as a school board. So just a reminder of that process. We do have a meeting at 6 p.m. that evening. That's our regular scheduled meeting. They'll also be there so that those folks that are going to come in and present will be able to do that in front of the school board. Again, socially distanced. We'll have plenty of opportunity for space, and if we do for some reason have overflow, we will have a person monitoring so that we do not allow anybody in that isn't going to speak at that moment, or if we do not have space. So we'll have chairs set up that are spaced out. This is similar to how a number of school districts have operated their meeting before their annual meeting as well. So looking at that. November 2nd, 16th, 7th, and 21st, future school board meeting dates. Tentatively, we did schedule for this space. If we have people willing to do in person, that's fine. If we want to talk about that later, we can. We can accommodate more people in this room for in-person versus the boardroom. We can make an option for virtual through a Zoom. for our normal meetings as well, if that's something that we want to go back to as well. So there could be more in person with options for those that would prefer to do the virtual piece of a board meeting. Are people comfortable with having at least this room
This is
for
great.
November and December for those 4 meetings?
I am.
I think it's fine, I am. I like
With,
it.
with the option that there, if someone either A, has to
Right.
be zoomed in, not gonna let everybody stay healthy at this time of year, but we will make sure that that is possible.
I think this is very nice.
Well, but I do think it needs to have be an option. And
For
I think
sure.
people should be able to.
Yeah, we should have that plan in place even for us, because there could be a
Yes.
chance that one of us could not be here.
Yeah.
Right.
Or others.
And I'm really glad that we're able to host, the parents next week. And I just hope that we're able to open up, comments for others as well. I mean, you know, beyond doing the written ones, either in Zoom or in person, which we talked about last time, so I'm kind of rehashing what we already decided, but I just feel like we need to give people the option. And I think at this point, people just really want to be heard. Like, they want to be heard, they want to be listened to, and whether, you know, like Tom was saying, you know, we take all that information and it might not be a decision that we make that night or even something that was on the agenda, but I think they just really want to be heard, so. I personally am getting a lot of comments about people wanting a different way to make public comments. Maybe that's just me.
If you're just not as comfortable with it, as they would be sitting in the room.
We'll evaluate how we can do that. I know that Andrew had reached out to the village. One of the challenges is our board meetings are always on the same night as, if we ever were to move to a Wednesday or a Thursday night, their organization could help facilitate more so for us, because they do have all of the equipment and the technology and the personnel that can operate more of that, so.
But they have meetings tonight. They have meetings tonight.
I think the plan commission is, nope, this is a board meeting, I think, tonight.
No, there's-
Plan commission is typically,
The board
I know our regular scheduled meetings, they always have meetings. So, that I know.
Okay.
Well, would it be possible, I mean, I'd be willing to help facilitate, is that if it just, if letting people enter into the room and talk, you know what I mean, like, I don't wanna put it on Arlington joining meetings or that. So, well, we can decide
Yeah,
that
we could.
as we move along, it looks like things could be different in 2 weeks anyway.
Okay.
Could be
Couple hours.
2 hours. Yeah.
Touche.
Marlon, I think we'd be at action items.
All right.
Yep.
First action item is on school-wide step transition no earlier than the dates for grades 3 through 12. Administration recommends the school-wide transition to step 3 hybrid in-person instruction no earlier than January 26, 2021. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Great. Second?
I'll second.
Questions or comments?
I think Lauren and Melissa did a good job of getting things out for us.
Yeah, nice plan. I agree. Hearing none, motion from Greg, second from Kristen, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes by majority. Next is action on school metrics for suspending in-person instruction. Administration recommends approval of the decision-making metrics for suspending in-person instruction due to COVID-19 as presented in the district administration report. Do I have a motion to approve?
I'll move to approve.
Ann?
Second.
Great. Any questions or comments on that?
I just wanna make sure that if there's, so where it says second case, it was third, and where it said fourth case, it's fifth?
Yes.
Those are the only 2 corrections on that sheet.
The other correction would be, it would be for any school, not just CEPS.
Oh, yeah,
But yes, I actually made them in the Google Doc already.
okay.
And then, not that we're voting on, but email also.
Yes.
The updates.
So all the information that we've gotten tonight will go out to the community or to the parents and the, okay.
Yes.
Fine.
The pink sheet will be updated and posted online, and then they will get an email that has the information of that, as well as the information about the 2 weeks around Thanksgiving and the no earlier dates. All of that will go in an email to families tomorrow,
Great.
should it be approved by the board.
We'll find out here quickly.
Only take a couple minutes.
Where did the COVID?
It's not linked on the boards, so you have, if you do a search, then you can find it again. But once this board meeting's over, it'll go right back to the main page.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, motion from Ann, second from Craig, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's by majority. Any board comments people like to share?
I've got just a couple of very brief things. I participated briefly in the WIS food drive that took place on the 15th. And that went remarkably smooth. There was a steady flow of folks coming in, and they were just parked and open up the back end and the volunteers went out and grab it. I thought it went very well, and it certainly appeared to me like there was a copious amount of foodstuffs and things there. So I think that went very well. And I also got a chance to visit a couple of schools again. Kind of see if things have changed any in a couple of weeks since I have been through there. And I tell you, you get such a great feeling walking through Conrad Elton when there's kids and teachers there. It's just a whole different kind of, environment.
I think everybody's hungry for that.
Oh, well, I don't think there's any doubt. I think people are misguided if they believe that there's anybody who doesn't want to get the kids and teachers all back in school. That just isn't the case. It's a matter of what kind of risk you're willing to take. And there's no zero risk, anywhere. You just have to pick the safest possible option based on all the data that we've got and information. I think we've got great sources of information.
So what grade, I was doing third grade, what grade were you doing on the food drive? Cause I didn't.
That was,
Between 4 and 5?
Rowley, is that what it was?
Yeah, what grades were you doing?
Third.
You were doing third?
Maybe.
You didn't see each other because you had masks on.
That stuff happens, but I could be wrong. It might not have been third, now that I think about it.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah.
Cool. So I did the same thing, for Thursday from 4 to 6. And then I went over to CEPS on Friday, because I'm gonna read a book on audio and video and take myself reading it, and I picked it up, and then I was able to walk through all the grade levels and talk to probably at least 10 teachers. So that
What
was
book did you read?
I'm reading If You Give a Pig a Pancake.
You give a pig a pancake?
By
Good one.
Gordon Brown. I know, so I had to pick it up.
I'm doing one about the mouse, and you get the mouse out.
A cookie?
Yeah. Oh, that's the one. I didn't read it yet, obviously.
Any other comments? All right. Next, we're about to go into closed session. So,
Do you have a motion to go into closed session?
I would move that we go to closed session.
I'll second. All right, this is a roll call vote. So
Yes.
Arlen? Craig?
Yes.
Christine?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
And then yes.
So Steve will be down shortly to remove the technology.
Yeah.
Should we take a 2-minute break? Or?
Yeah.
2-minute stretch?
Yeah.